Hello and welcome back to the Dark Elves Abridged. Last time we fought a brief war against the lizard men that actually went quite well and then just petered out. We captured some territory from the Dread fleet up to the north somewhere. We invaded the Elf home island and we took some territory from them. It looked like things were going well. Then I got distracted doing a quest battle which did not go very well. And after the losses we took doing that, things got a lot worse when the elves really came at us hard with some good strategies. We're here in our battle to defend our recently captured elven territory. I couldn't be bothered to film the replay and you'll quickly see why. As mentioned in the last part, this is a relatively useless last stand because we don't have enough stuff to win, and in a last stand situation, if you can't defeat entire units, then you can't do anything. Even though we did take out a few units to start off with because the enemy attacked with a few on their own, we didn't kill them down to the less than 5% total man count or whatever it is that deletes the unit on the campaign map. And because the enemy will be able to replenish after this, any kills we get effectively don't count. So here I am, just wasting my own time really. We fought the enemy army for a bit. However, they have various powerful units that we can't do much against. Their lancers and heavy cav just hit the front of our line where we've got a load of crossbows and our two-handed swords, or dual swords I should say, who are both getting annihilated. Their birds are doing a number on me. I think they're taking down my commander there, and the entire time arrows are just raining on our lines, so we die very quickly. Here's the result. We lost absolutely everything, and the enemy effectively lost absolutely nothing, in much the same way I've been cheekily losing absolutely nothing all the times that I've been getting wrecked in the past. So there you go, it finally benefited the enemy to a major degree. We've lost our little enclave there, and what's more, they can actually use that to deploy to the sea and do a battle this turn against my Black Ark. Fortunately, when I withdraw, they don't pursue, so the Black Ark survives. I thought they were going to come down and attack the remnants of my army now as well, but actually they're just coming to stand near us. Clearly something's going on here, perhaps they intend to. One more piece of bad news to stack on top of that. The Black Ark I was sending over to the east side of the map gets attacked by this random marauding army of really powerful Dark Elves. Not sure who these guys are. I seem to remember when I played Warhammer before, you sometimes encounter random one army factions that are just up to no good. I guess this is an example. I was sitting here pretty much just looking over their army roster and being like, this is the army that we need. We need to make something like these guys have, and then maybe we can do that quest. So I got some ideas. However, as for this situation, we're screwed. We can't retreat from it because I think I was in the fast rowing stance. So there you go, the Black Ark is sunk. Pretty annoying. We can just get another one, but it costs money and they lose their population upgrades. It's the equivalent to having a settlement be raised when a Black Ark gets destroyed, because they are sort of a settlement. Anyway, we're going to run away from the Elven Island now. I put what remains of my army to sea, and our other Black Ark will try and go out with them. So we're just going to get out of there. It's all a lost cause, I think. Back at home, I was still going to go with the plan I mentioned last time, where I was going to sail across to the other side of the map with this stack down here and raid the Tomb Kings. But then I realised I can't do that without taking attrition the whole way. It's because previously I had Lokir Felhart, and he has some sort of trait that prevents you getting attrition at sea. So without him leading the army, or maybe perhaps it's just because he's wounded, we are now going to take attrition at sea and the plan is ruined. With that out the window as well, we're going to bring things down now and go back to a far more ordinary strategy. We're not going to go raid somewhere far afield. We are going to concentrate on taking our next nearest logical opponent, which is currently our ally, the Awakening. As mentioned previously, we have them as a victory objective, so taking them down is productive in that regard. And they're next to us, they're along the coast, they logically expand our territory north, so they're going to be our new targets. The project of this part will be to put something together against them and go for a big betrayal. Before that though, we've got some more bad news to get through. The small elven force puts to sea and goes after our good Black Ark. We run away, but annoyingly they pursue. How dare they? So now we are screwed. This is a max rank Black Ark that has the good recruitment buildings on it. That was where we got our melee specialist hero from, and where we could get actual upgrades to our units, but not anymore. It's going to take another 50 turns to get something like that back together. By then we might even have the land buildings to do it instead. We also get attacked over at our main force. I was considering fighting this because it might be a balanced engagement according to the balance bar. Seems no one really knows, and I'm included in that. However, In this case, there's no point in fighting, because even if we win, we don't achieve anything. I plan to leave, so defeating this army doesn't change that in any way. We might as well just leave. And when I retreat, the enemy do not pursue, so that's going to save me a little bit of real-life time, and hopefully save some troops as well. I wanted to go down to the Galleon's graveyard to replenish. Annoyingly, I'm going to have to take high seas attrition on the way, so we're actually going to get weaker before we get stronger here. Good stuff. We can't put recruitment buildings there either, so we won't be able to do all that much from that location. However, I can wait until Lockyer Felhart comes back, and that will strengthen us a lot. And we can replenish up all the units in this army, which still includes the good units. The stuff we lost are things we can just re-recruit, but our Manticore, our Creeping Dread, who are our special handbows, and various experienced units are still alive, so we'll build them back up, and in the end we'll have an army that's still roughly as strong as the one we had before, if we get Felhart back as well. We can spit out another Black Ark at the Galleon's graveyard and start building this thing up from the bottom. But while it's here, it's going to increase our replenishment speed, so just having it sit there doing nothing is also going to help us out. I think it also makes you a tiny bit of money as well, although perhaps it costs more to upkeep than it makes in its lowest level form. You can see the elves were actually pursuing me. They've sent some ships down. This is a couple of turns later when I'm thinking about leaving, so I'm just going to try to ignore the elves there. Their army's probably not big enough to take the Galleon's graveyard, so we'll just sail off, taking more attrition on the way. We're sailing towards Pox Marsh, and you can see I've already brought my other army up from the home territories to hang out nearby. We are preparing for the betrayal big time. I was checking out the Galleon's graveyard garrison, and it kind of looks like we can beat those elves in a straight up fight, especially because they'll take more attrition to get to us, so they'll be a little bit weaker than they are now. Anyway, we move on, taking the last little bit of high seas attrition to get back to the target zone. In the next turn, Lockyer is back, so it's time to make the replacement on the main force, get rid of whoever that was before, and there we go. Now all of those Corsairs will be cheaper, meaning we make a lot more money all of a sudden, and they get tons of stat bonuses. Well, not tons, actually, only a few, because I haven't specced into the stat bonuses all that much. We betray the Awakened. I had already broken the alliance, but it was too recently. We still count as traitors. Now we get going. As for Pox Marsh, nothing much to worry about here with our 2 stacks against their less than a stack garrison of mostly zombie trash. Not much is going to happen there, so we can just auto-resolve them to death to get this thing going. I think the Awakening only have 2 regions, and this is one of them, so we've already taken half of their territory. That was fast. Gonna do loot and occupy here, mainly to get the replenishment. Now our main force will be at full strength after that. Plus, I don't care too much about a rebellion happening here. Since we're going to be around, we can just fight the rebels, and I'm going to add the garrison building to Pox Marsh, which, as we've seen with our other place out west, might be enough to stop rebels from actually being a problem. We do need to raid our own territory to prevent attrition, so that's going to make rebellions even more likely. So it would be good to try and make this area rebellion-proof. There is tons of vampire corruption, of course, here, which gives us constant attrition. I thought maybe I was taking attrition because of the swamps and the marshes here, but that is not the case because Felhart has a trait that makes him immune to swamp attrition, and he still takes it as well. So I think it's just the corruption getting to us. Well, we'll just keep raiding and see what happens. We're going to keep our 2 armies together here because the vampire main force is just to the west, and they may well come over. You can see that Loki has got himself a dragon while he was dead. I wonder if that messes up all of the skills I was taking to increase his melee stats, because now it's the dragon stats that apply or something. I don't really know how the mount system works. As usual, the elf army is actually slowly sailing around, looking like maybe it wants to get involved over here, or perhaps it's going down towards our home territory. We'll have to keep an eye on those guys, because now they're pretty close to our Black Ark. But before that, we need to look at this situation. The vampires bring up some reinforcements from the south, and then bring in their main force to attack, and they actually walk past Lockyer to attack my inferior army behind him. We're still in reinforcement range, so we'll get both of our armies. It's just slightly easier to have it the other way around. Oh well. The enemy have a lot of strength on that balance bar, and there's also a lot of unsurety going on, which I thought was a bit strange, because surely we have way more stuff than them, and I like to believe that the Dark Elf stuff is quite good, that their units are supposed to be high stats relative to other factions' units. That might not be the case, I haven't actually checked, and we're starting to see the game disagrees with me. But anyway, as for this fight, we start off with a classic, their reinforcements behind you, your reinforcements behind them deployment situation, so the fighting gets going right away. this favours us because their reinforcement army is a half stack and they'll be fighting our initial full stack, whereas our reinforcement full stack will meander onto the field and just distract their full stack down over there. So let's have a look at this initial battle. We've got some bats causing issues, but the main thing I was focusing on was the bloated corpses, who of course will be coming on very close to our army. We've already taken down one. This one's going unattended to because all of my other archers are targeted onto the one running right into the front of our lines. However, it wasn't enough to take it out, it turns out, and boom, we instantly lose an entire unit of swords. Looks like our sorceress has already taken half of her health in damage and been routed. Nasty stuff. So no magic and no swords on the right flank, but everything else just charges on in. This army has a lot of ranged units, so that's okay. In comes another bloated corpse here, and this spear squad is none the wiser. Boom, down, most of them go with a huge wave of damage. It's actually worse there than with the swords, because in the case of the sword unit, it does the thing I mentioned previously, where the unit takes a lot of damage but very few model kills, whereas with spears, with their lower health I presume, they actually do die. So we've actually lost that unit more permanently, more really, because they'll have to replenish after this battle. The swords, while they can't fight in this battle, they'll actually be back at full health again after this. Sneaky. I was disappointed there that our Corsairs weren't absolutely annihilating those zombie gunners. They're just somewhat annihilating them. It's taking a while to get through them. Just figured it'd be faster. It might be because we're playing on hard difficulty, or it might be an effect of the SFO mod in some way. Not really sure. As for my other big army, we're really just walking towards the enemy. Basically, while microing, I just selected the army and ordered them to walk forwards, and that was about it because I was paying more attention to the other fight. So they're just gradually walking up and getting hit by a whole bunch of mortars. Fortunately for us, the mortars aren't that powerful, so we're surviving that well. And we have 2 flying units now to go and take out their artillery. Not only the Manticore as usual, but Felhart on his dragon. The dragon doesn't have the single entity against artillery problem I've been complaining about in this campaign, because its attacks have large area of effect, so it can tie out the whole artillery unit at once. There's the Manticore not doing that, and they are still firing while we're in combat with them. Nice and annoying. Over on the other side of the field, we've sorted everything out. There's a hero in this crowd somewhere, but it's dying at about this point, so that's that sorted. Now I need to go and help out on the other side of the battlefield. A few units came over, 2 fighters, and right now our ranged stuff are skirmishing with some enemy gunners. In come the crabs though. The crabs gave us a lot of trouble before, but now they're walking into a whole bunch of fire-at-will crossbows, and the crossbows will start targeting them automatically. Plus, the crossbows and handbows have some armor-piercing damage, so when we shoot at them we do kill the crabs. That's going to demoralize them as well because they're taking losses and damage and they're on their own. And units like this usually have low morale in this game in order to counterbalance their strength and extremely good melee combat abilities. So we do rout them and kill them, and that was okay in the end. The other fight is just a big mess right now. The enemy have a lot of melee infantry, or melee/ranged infantry, so I'm just running forwards and trying to get them into melee as usual with this army build. And it's working. We should be better than them. Again, I don't actually know, but it's safe to assume our melee troops are better than theirs. So we'll slowly hack our way through, and we are now at the buffed mode. We've got enough kills, so those will be going better than usual as well. Having a tiny bit of trouble at the back because the enemy have a lot of pistol troops that are attacking my Manticore, so it's taking damage, but everything else in the enemy army is getting destroyed, so it doesn't have to last much longer before all our melee troops swoop through, and the other army is starting to approach as well. It's too far away to really impact the battle, but we can take out the couple of units that they did send closer to that side of the field. Here we are a while later. We're pretty much there. They have some heroes back here who are going to be reluctant to die, of course, but eventually they're going to be overwhelmed, especially fighting my monsters who are pretty good with their high damage. My melee specialist was trying to get through to their general, but he's kind of stuck here, as you can see. The enemy have him surrounded, and I guess because he's got a move order, he doesn't stop to fight them or anything. It's the opposite to the usual Total War problem. And he's just doing nothing. He's just getting hit all the time. So that sucks. Didn't realize he was being so ineffective. He could at least kill some of those guys. Looks like my Black Ark has taken out the enemy's mortars over there, the last of their mortars, using the web thing to damage that boarding crew and perhaps allow our melee specialist to get out, but I suppose it doesn't matter at this point. The enemy are now just dying on morale, so everything's getting wiped out, and the last thing to go was their faction leader who's running about the field. Eventually he just trips over and dies because he's so scared. The magic is gone. That's a close victory. We didn't lose any units, so that's all good. And of course, because the enemy are vampires, they automatically lose all of their units, meaning it's a complete victory. We'll grab some replenishment after that to be ready to go. Plus, because this took place in the enemy's turn, we'll get replenishment again once we get to the end of the end turn sequence, and that replenishment will be buffed by the Black Ark, meaning after all that we will have lost nothing really. Now we could take both stacks and go down to attack the enemy capital right now. However, for a relatively pointless reason, we're not going to do that. Instead, we still have some stuff to do before we complete the current chapter. We are currently on 7 of 8 captures to complete the chapter, meaning before I take another settlement, I need to do some stuff. One thing is complete our raiding goal, which we can do right now by raiding the absolute heck out of the Awakening's territory, making a ton of money in the process. The other thing we need to do is recruit a War Hydra. Unfortunately, we've only just got to the point when we can build the thing that lets me recruit the War Hydra, meaning I am now going to not finish the Awakening off for as long as it takes to get one of those things, so I can pedantically get all of the bonus objectives done. Relatively pointless, but I like to hamstring myself just for entertainment purposes, so we'll do that. We also have so much money, we do need to invest into our economy and get some other recruitment options available so we can one day make a good army, but we'll come back to that when the time comes. We've got one other thing we need to attend to this turn, and that is the Black Ark. I was checking out our movement range here. We can just about get out of range of the enemy fleet that's nearby, but the best way to do that is to go up to the west. So I do so, now they can't attack us. However, that's going to still lead to some issues in a second. First, I realised I can get myself berated by the enemy commander by constantly clicking on the fleet. That was fun for a while. Then we end the turn. Lothern go first, and they reveal they've got another full stack coming down. They are back for revenge. This means my Black Ark's in a bit of a bad situation, because not only are they being pursued by that other army, but our best way to get out of this is going to be to sail west. That'll take us away from the battlefront with the Awakening, and we'll lose our Black Ark support. Before we look into that more and work out what to do, we have something else coming up. It's the humans from the west. They've marched over here to the Temple of Tlenkan and besieged it. We're only at war with these guys because of the Awakening, so this is kind of stupid really. I should have just ignored the Awakening when they asked me to go to war with these people. We're now fighting this stupid battle that shouldn't be happening, but the balance bar says it might be really easy. It also says it might be really hard, so we're going to have to manually resolve this to find out the truth of the matter. I did have the replay for this one, but looks like I forgot to film it, and it doesn't really matter enough to go back and do it again, so let's just look at this live. We started things off with a bit of a skirmish, which is much to our advantage. We've got our line of dark shields with shields in the tree line, so we are highly resistant to ranged attacks in our current formation, whereas shooting at the enemy's generic archers and crossbows, well, they shouldn't have any particular advantage. So we immediately pick up a kill on that first unit and start raining damage on everything else. The other units keep their distance, and that skirmish is going to be ongoing for the rest of the battle really. I'm going to run forward with my melee units and get a blobby fight going in the centre against all of the enemy's spears and swords. I've got 2 units of cav way off on the flank here, and they're going to go after the 2 units of archers from the enemy's reinforcements that were for some reason sent specifically to fight my cav. Not a very good matchup from the AI there. That shall be an easy victory for us. I'm presuming we're going to win that melee as well with no further involvement, because the enemy's generic Empire swords probably aren't as good as our bleak swords. I need to get my dark shards to mainly focus on shooting at the enemy crossbows at the back. They're going to be tempted to shoot things closer to them because of fire at will. So a bit of micro required there. Also sending in the hand bows to close range to do the same thing. They do say they have a high threat when you mouse over the crossbows, implying the crossbows could beat them, but in a ranged fight at least, it turns out the hand bows win, so that's good for us. That fight in the centre does start going our way as the enemy's infantry die, but they have infantry from their second army that plows in, so the fight then continues on and it's looking increasingly messy. They tried to outflank us on our left with some two-handed axemen, but we shot them with the crossbows at point blank range and quickly destroyed that unit wholesale, killing all of them I believe before they routed. Maybe they're unbreakable. Meanwhile, our 2 cavalry units are just doing the damage, running around taking out all these archer units all over the place. Makes me wish I actually put some cav in some of my regular armies. Maybe one day. In the meantime, All of our Dark Shards are going to focus fire on the centre of the enemy blob. They've got some spears in there, should be a nice juicy target for us. Their two generals are being annoying, running forwards and attacking my archers, and they're getting skirmished away because they're still on skirmish mode. Probably should have turned that off. But anyway, at this stage in the fight we kind of have this. The balance bar's not that far in our favour, but the enemy's strength is spread out all over the place. Our cav are gradually taking out archer units one by one, and then we get a chain rout where all of the units across the field just suddenly get out of there, and bang, it's a victory. Good stuff. I chased the enemy down for a while to try and get some more kills, but I didn't actually do this for very long. I got bored and just ended the battle, and we end up with the enemy army not being all that destroyed after that. So they'll still be around. As for us, we're fine, didn't lose any units, and they're garrison units anyway, so they just come back afterwards. We'll take the money and say well done to Tlenkan. However, that's not going to be the end of their ales. This place is going to be in a lot more trouble, as we'll see in the next part. And also, my insistence on doing the bonus objectives annoys me more and more as I realise how much it's going to screw me over actually. Well, we'll see. Makes the campaign more interesting maybe. Come watch me complain in part 5.